was supposed to be a bucket list. When my son was born, I told my wife that when he turns 10, I'm going to drive him in my own Porsche 928. We all have an experience, or at least remember the first time we were inside a moving Porsche. For me, it was a 1984 Porsche 928S with 310 horsepower automatic gearbox. I had crawled back to the back seat. I was 10 years old. I guess the experience when me and my son hit the road in my own Porsche 928 S4 from 1988, well, the experience perhaps was larger for me than for him. But I will never forget his question. How old did you say this car was, Dad?
Once upon a time, there was a time when brands put value in build quality and engineering. It was not all about reaching the specification as fast and cost-effective as possible, but instead to find the unknown.
And perhaps that is the 928 biggest issue, its perfection. Remember, the design of this vehicle was set in 1971, called K-design internally at Porsche. And to really understand it, you have to look at the present cars back at those days, 70s, 80s. I still remember when me and my sisters were having a picnic on the rear bumper of my mother's and father's Volvo 240. That's how huge the bumper was, and having a fully integrated rear bumper that time, that was innovation. Moving to the center of the vehicle with a B-pillar leaning forward. That is used today in station wagon to get a more sporty look. That was actually now present on a sports car. In the front, we had the headlights, well, the pop-up lights that was still visible. And if the technology was present for Porsche, I guarantee you they have made those sleek digital lights that we have today. Of course, then, it would have been, well, impossible for the majority of the customers to truly understand the Porsche 928. It was a futuristic vehicle.
Still today, it's the only sports car that has won the European Car of the Award back in 1978. And as a consequence, the Porsche 928 set the prerequisites for the future motoring. Today, luxury car manufacturers strive to be unique but can never reach the superior level as Porsche had 30 years ago. It was the future.
The futuristic design actually continues inside the Porsche 928. The door panels continues and follow through to the dashboard. Even the ventilation are integrated to the doors, and it feels complete when you sit behind the steering wheel. The center console follow through as we are used to see in modern cars. Again, please remember that we talk about designers drawing this in the 70s. I think the K-design that Porsche followed through with was a bold decisions that hardly ever is made in business life today, taking that step before everybody else and then continues. The Porsche 928 was produced for 17 years. That, for me at least, are a true sign-off that the design was unique. I don't think I have seen any other car that could be measured towards the 928. You could say the 911, but it has been changed more or less every 7 years.
Always think of you when spring comes, like it's something in the air at that time. Don't know why. Always dream of you when spring comes. It's like the heat on my skin takes me back to the time. Met you on a Friday, halfway out at the door of the club, playing soul on the weekends. Stayed in bed till Wednesday, fell in love with you right there and then. I was young, couldn't see that.
I've owned several vintage Porsche cars, but none as beautiful as the Porsche 928. We romanticize old Porsche cars, but none of them are as easy to live with as the Porsche 928. Very few vintage car owners take their vehicles for the holiday drive, except for the Porsche 928 owners.
Driving the Porsche 928 should be done with a dogleg manual gearbox. For me at least, that suits my driving because I want to control the register of the beautiful V8 engine. It has so much thrust to give you, and depending if you are on the long trip drive or if you are on those beautiful B-roads, the manual gearbox gives you the opportunity to control your engine by yourself. Getting into a corner, you might think that, it's a heavy GT car, but that was my thought in the beginning, but that is not the truth. The car, with its gearbox in the rear, engine in the front, gives that weight to ratio balance that you need getting into that corner. It brakes, the old beautiful cars where you have so extreme connection between the brake pedal and the road, setting the prerequisites for getting into that corner and then lifting off the brakes, gently approaching the pedal, and the thrust from the engine throws you out of that corner. On the same way, on the highway, you put on the cruise control and with no problem, 120 kilometers an hour, you have a beautiful comfort cruiser. I put the Porsche 928 in between a sports car and a GT car because it's too ideal in the corner to be a GT cruiser. Nevertheless, we all know the story of how the Porsche 928 was supposed to replace the Porsche 911. But have we asked the question why? You see, until recently when China passed, US has always been the largest market for Porsche. And the end of the 60s, US government was looking into to abandon rear-fitted engine for safety reasons. Therefore, Porsche needed to look into extend their model range. And as we all know, Volkswagen, they abandoned their sports car project, and in 1976 the Porsche 924 was born. 2 years later, 1978, the Porsche 928, and 1984, 944. The transaxle era has started, where the gearbox was fitted in the rear and the engine in the front.
US government did not implement the new regulations and the 911 survived. Hollywood stars queued to drive the Porsche 928 to show off their superior fame factor. But how did I then end up with a Porsche 928 S4 from 1988?
I guess I spent a lot of time trying to find that 1984 S as I drove when I was 10 years. I didn't drove it, but at least I was in the back seat. But the car is too good and the owner drives it. So it's difficult to find a good example. Many of the car has passed over 300 kilometers, and that is just an example on how good the car is, because the owner don't want to have it parked in a garage. I have had 911s, vintage 911s, and the only time I drove them was when I was focusing and saying, I'm going to take a drive. But with this beautiful 928 S4, I take it occasionally on my regular errands. And I think that's why a lot of those 928 get a lot of mileage on the odometers. The car is so... I'm not sure how to express it, but it's kind of a family member. And it takes time to get to know it. As when you meet new friends. You say hello and you look at it and you say that, okay, it is white, but it takes time to understand this beauty. That gives me back, let's say in the 80s, and you walked into a Porsche center, you needed to have quite of an intellect or passion or perhaps being a gambler to buy a Porsche 928. It was way beyond its time. And driving a Porsche 928 today, it's close to driving a Panamera in comfort. Well, yes, the new cars, especially the Panamera, is more comfortable, but it's far from ideal to drive as the Porsche 928 is. Oof, it's such a beauty. For me, I found this Porsche 928 S4 in Porsche Center Örebro. It had, when I bought it, 71,000 kilometers, and I'm approaching 75,000 kilometers. And it is well kept. In fact, I had a 4th place in Concordia Elegance. But when Porsche Center Stockholm held the 70th Porsche anniversary, I was caught by a unique vehicle in the exhibition that they had in place. It was a Porsche 356, but it has never been renovated. It had the patina. And that's why I now try to preserve my 928. The car needs to have a history. When I look at all these vintage cars, especially a 911 that, well, it goes dozens with renovated 911s these days, which looks most likely in better shape when it left the factory. All the history of the car is gone. But the old 356 that I experienced during the exhibition during the 7th anniversary, that was something different. You could feel the history, you could feel the edge, you feel the lifetime the car has spent. My car is far from flawless, and that's why I love it so much. It has its history. It has had a life before I met her. And that's the beauty of buying a vintage car. Some are happy, or let me say that I'm jealous in certain people that actually have bought the car and 30 years later still owns it. That's what I tell my son every day when he starts to talk about car. Try to find a vehicle that you think you could live with for the rest of your life. He smiles at me always, and he said, that it's not a wife we talk about. And I just love him for that comment. But if you are a true passionate guy or a petrol head, cars are sometimes relationships. And for me, I start to build a quite intense relationships with this 928. And it kind of irritates me. Not sure if that is the right word, but I'm a 911 guy driving a Porsche 928. Perhaps it was supposed to be a bucket list in the beginning, where I should just own it a couple of months. But for some reason, or perhaps because of the reason, she is still parked in my garage.